Tim and Tom were the best of friends, known far and wide for their unique ability to turn every situation into a hilarious disaster. One sunny morning, they decided to take a road trip to the neighboring town, a simple journey that quickly spiraled out of control. As they packed their car, they realized they had forgotten the map and decided to wing it. Halfway through, they found themselves hopelessly lost deep in the countryside. In their attempt to find their way back, Tim suggested following a herd of sheep, assuming they knew where they were going. Hours later, they were deep in a sheep farm with no idea how to escape. Their next bright idea was to climb a tree to get a better view of the surroundings. Tom, being heavier, broke the first branch he stepped on, sending both of them tumbling down. After a few hours of wandering, they stumbled upon an old, abandoned house. Excitedly, they decided to explore it, convinced it held some secret treasure. Inside, they found a dusty old chest and eagerly pried it open, only to release a swarm of bats. Screaming and flailing, they ran out of the house, their faces and hair covered in cobwebs. Once they calmed down, they decided to set up camp for the night. They fumbled with the tent for an hour, only to end up with a tangled mess of poles and fabric. Giving up on the tent, they tried to start a fire for warmth. In their excitement, they accidentally set their sleeping bags on fire and spent the night shivering under the stars. The next morning, determined to find civilization, they followed a river, hoping it would lead them to a town. Instead, it led them to a large waterfall, where they slipped and fell into the water below. Soaking wet and tired, they continued their journey, only to run into a farmer who spoke a language they didn't understand. Through exaggerated gestures and broken sentences, they finally got directions back to the main road. Ecstatic to be back on track, they celebrated by stopping at a roadside diner. However, they didn't realize they were at the back entrance and ended up in the kitchen, much to the surprise of the staff. Once they managed to explain themselves and get a meal, they continued their trip. This time, they took a wrong turn and ended up in a parade, their car becoming part of the procession. Laughing at their luck, they waved at the cheering crowd, pretending they were part of the show. Eventually, they found their way out of the parade and back onto the road. Tim suggested they take a shortcut through a forest to save time. Of course, this led to them getting stuck in the mud, their car wheels spinning helplessly. After hours of trying to free the car, they decided to walk the rest of the way. Along the way, they encountered a wild boar and ran for their lives, ending up in a thorn bush. Scratched and bruised, they stumbled upon a small village where they finally found someone who could help them. The kind villager gave them directions and a ride back to their car. Grateful for the help, they managed to get their car out of the mud and back on the road. Exhausted but still laughing, they finally reached their destination. They spent the next few days exploring the town, each adventure more ridiculous than the last. From getting locked in a museum overnight to mistaking a fancy gala for a costume party, their antics never ceased to amuse. Despite all the mishaps, Tim and Tom had the time of their lives. They made new friends, created unforgettable memories, and laughed until their sides hurt. On the way back home, they got lost once again but didn't mind at all. For them, the journey was always more important than the destination. As they pulled into their driveway, they looked at each other and burst into laughter. "Same time next week?" Tim asked, and Tom nodded eagerly. And so, the two foolish friends continued their misadventures, each one more hilarious than the last. They lived for the laughter and the joy they brought to each other's lives, proving that sometimes it's okay to be a little foolish.